One of my favorite things to do in this world is to grab a guitar and sit down with another guitar player and have a little jam session. The sound of two guitars, especially acoustic guitars, is kind of magical to me. And it's amazing how big of a sound you can create with just two guitars. You can really fill the space. If you've got somebody doing the rhythm, you can hear, when I'm doing that, you can hear the bass, you can hear the rhythm section, and you can also hear a snare drum on the 2 and the 4. And so, you know, that is one person covering like 3 instruments in a way. And then if you throw on top of that a really full sounding lead with harmonies and taking advantage of open strings, and that's actually what we're going to look at in this video, is we're going to look at a lead part that takes advantage of the open E string and the open B string. So you can do licks like those kinds of things where it's really full. It sounds like more than one player because, well, you're playing more than one note. But you can also do these little bouncy things off of your open strings. That kind of thing. And I want to show you how to do that and give you examples of how to do that so you can walk away and have these licks that you can use when you're jamming. And so here's what it's going to sound like with those two parts. Okay, so in this video, we're going to go through the first half of the lead. If you'd like to learn the second half of the lead and also get the tablature for the entire lead, get the MP3 jam track, which is missing the lead, and also learn how to play the rhythm. I've got a separate video and a separate tablature for the rhythm part, so you can get that whole thing going. And basically have enough lesson material to play either rhythm or lead. You can get all of those extras for this lesson. Plus there's a slow version of the jam track. So if this is too fast of a tempo, we've got a slower version. You can work your way up. You can get all of that by going to activemelody.com and doing a search for EP639. So what makes this possible when you're playing and taking advantage of that open E string is when you're playing in the key of E. Now, if I was trying to play in the key of F, that wouldn't work, but you could always just throw a capo on. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you want to do some of these licks in a different key, just grab a capo and kind of work out how to play them. But kind of connect everything back to this E chord shape. At least these first licks that we're going to look at. Let's listen to the first phrase and we'll break it down. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so this is a major pentatonic thing. And it sounds like that. And what I'm doing is I'm taking advantage of major pentatonic scale pattern 2. I want you to think about your E chord here. On your second string, you have your open and then second fret, and then same thing on the first string. Open, second. So you have a little box there between the nut, or open, and the second fret. That's your major pentatonic scale. And you can do any of that major sounding stuff. You can do off of that box. Now notice I slid up to that 4th fret on the first string. That's the 3rd interval of my E chord. And that's another note in your major pentatonic scale. So if I add this note to that box, I've got... I can do all kinds of really cool major sounding stuff by taking advantage of that space. And that's where this first thing that we're playing is coming from. Now notice when I started that lick, I started on the 3rd fret and slid up to the 4th fret. The 3rd fret is your flat 3. And I talk about this all the time. You hear this in the blues, you go from the flat 3 to the major 3rd. It's just a common, it doesn't sound like much, but it adds a ton to your playing. Here it is on that 3rd string. This kind of thing. Flat 3 to the major 3. That's what we're doing here. So that lick then, so we're going to slide up to here to the 4th fret from the 3rd fret. Open, there's your first open string that we're going to look at. And then I'm going to come down here to the 2nd fret, 2nd string, and then hit strings 1 and 2 open. So look at this. So let's just practice that. Don't go any further. Just try and get that under your belt. You know, set a metronome if you have to, or tap your foot, but just... And notice that slide there. I'm not picking that twice. I'm only picking it once. And those are 2 downstrokes there. So, all right, so after this, we're gonna come back to the 2nd fret and play that again. And then, so 2nd fret, 2nd string, and then upstroke on the open 1 string. Really taking advantage of those open strings. It makes it so much easier. Now, if I take all that and put it together, I have my first little phrase. It goes. Now that's a loopable phrase. You could get, if you get, don't go any further, just get that down. Tap your foot, take it slow. And then again. And that becomes a lick that you can add to your playing. This is how it works. This is how like learning how to improvise works. It's way more of this than getting in the books and trying to understand theory. There's no theory in this video. This isn't going to be about theory. All the theory you need to know is we're in the key of E. And the rest of this is just going to be licks and ideas that kind of play off of chord shapes. And the only reason I say that is so that you can find them and use them again in other keys. If I know that that's my E shape and this lick is off of this, watch this. I can then play it in the key of G. There's my E shape. So all I have to do is recreate where the nut was and go. Right? So hopefully a light bulb went off for somebody and go, oh, that's how you repurpose licks. That's all it is. But it has to be connected to something. So for me, it's those chord shapes from the Cage system. That's what the neck looks like to me. It's just a series of 5 shapes, basically. Okay, let's get back to it. Okay, so everything we've played over thus far has just been an E chord. So the rhythm player is going, that's it, just an E chord. Now, the second time through, the rhythm is going to go to the 5 chord, which is your B7. So the first time, just the E chord. Now the second time, listen to this. Notice it was different. I went to this. I slid up to the 4th fret 2nd string, and listen to how that fits over that B7 chord. Why does that sound so good? Why does that fit? And why did I come to this note, that 4th fret 2nd string? Well, I was thinking about my B chord because we're going to the 5 chord. Look at this. There's my B chord using the A shape. There's the top part of it. But look at this. That note, that's the 3rd of the chord. Hopefully a light bulb went off for somebody with that idea. And you go, oh, so that's why that works so well. Just in that one spot, it was enough to really hint at the sound of that 5 chord. And if you can hit the root, the 3rd, the 5th, or even the flat 7, if it's kind of a bluesy thing, those are very stable notes, and those notes are always going to work. But the 3rd is one of the most stable notes you can hit. So I came up to that note, and all of that was played on the 2nd string. Open, 2nd fret, open. All right, so let's put those 2 parts together now. And remember, when you play the first part, when you're playing along with the jam track, you don't start that slide on the 1. You start it on the beat just before the 1. That note is where the 1 is. So it goes like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so as far as the rhythm goes, this is what we have so far. We have an E, then it goes to the 5 chord, which is our B7, and then this next part, it's gonna go like this: E, A, B7, back to E. So that's 1, 4, 5, back to 1. But I didn't do that with a rhythm track. You'll notice that, and I'm gonna go into more detail in that into that extra video for premium members. But what it sounds like is like this. So you can hear kind of this bass walk up, which I'll talk about in that other video. But that's the chord structure. It's E, A, B, back to E. So what do we play over that? This is what I ended up playing. It's very simple. I'm just doing a little walk down. In fact, it's kind of going the opposite direction. The bass is walking up, but this lead line is walking down, and the two together sound kind of cool. Now, I just sort of accidentally did that, or I guess my ear kind of went there because I was thinking of probably something I've heard somebody else do. It's not, I don't invent any of this stuff. I'm just a, you know, and that's probably true of most of us at this point. It's all been said at some point. We just like to repeat what we've heard, you know. But anyway, I'm sliding up to the E note, and I love the sound of this. This is like a blues 101. You got to get this fat E sound where I'm sliding to the 5th fret 2nd string, hitting that E note, but I'm also playing that same note on the 1st string. And when you hear them together, you hear that in the blues. This, it's just so cool sounding. So I went up to this, and then watch this, on the 2nd string, I just walked from the 5th fret to the 3rd, to the 2nd, to the 1st, to open. And it's just a walk down. And what I'm doing with the right hand is down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, on just strings 1 and 2. Now you can get a lot of mileage out of just that lick and use it as a turnaround. So if I'm playing a blues in E, watch this. So that's just a variation of that same idea. So don't just take this stuff and use it just in this. Always be thinking about how else you can use that. And you can use that as just a lead, little run that you can do in your lead in the key of E anytime. It doesn't have to just be a turnaround. So after that walk down, I played this. So this is a slide from the 2nd fret to the 4th fret on the 3rd string. And notice when I'm doing that, I'm also hitting that open B string. So I'm taking advantage of that. It's the same thing I did for that E. You get that real fat E sound, you can get the fat B sound. And why does the B work there? Because we're playing over the B chord, the 5 chord. So I'm doing 2 of those, sliding to the 4th fret, and then hitting the open 2nd string. And that's a down on the 3rd string, upstroke on the 2nd string. Like that. And I use this idea all the time. You hear guitar players doing that, especially like rockabilly, or on the 1st string you'll hear. Anyway, I'm just throwing those ideas out there to kind of plant seeds. So after 2 of those, I went. So that's 2nd fret, 1st fret on the 3rd string, and then down to the 2nd fret, 4th string. And all I'm thinking about as I play that is my E chord. It's like an E sus4. And then flat 3, hammer on the 3rd, which would be the 1st fret, 3rd string. And that's the little lick. All right, so here's how you're going to want to practice that turnaround part. Let me do it slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me do it again. So that's the little lick. And I love the sound of that. It just sounds, it's very rhythmic, and it you know, if you do it right and you land with that upstroke on the open 1 string, or the open 1 and 2 string, it'll just work out, it'll time out perfectly, and it feels right. All right, so at this point, the whole thing repeats. We've played the turnaround, and we go back to. That's the same, exactly the same as the first time. The second time goes. So the second time is a little different. I'm gonna go, that part's the same. And then I came up here and hit the 4th fret first string and the 5th fret second string. And now we're playing a harmonized third. It sounds different than playing, you know, that open one string. So when I'm playing that, this is what, and remember we're playing that over an E chord. This is what I'm thinking about. That's my E chord using that D shape. It's my D shape, I just move it up 2 frets, it's an E now. And I'm just playing strings 1 and 2. So it makes sense why that would work. And then after that I went and hit strings 1, 2, and 3 on the 2nd fret. So let me put it together with the call and response. But then the song goes to the 5 chord. Why did this work? Well, that's just the sound of a B9. Look at this. That's a B9, right? Here's a B7. So if I were to take my B7, those 3 notes, 5, 4, and strings 5, 4, and 3, and then I take my pinky and I bar strings 1 and 2 up here, and play that, that's a B9. But look at just the top 3 strings. Right? And I've talked about this a lot of times. In fact, last week we talked about the 6 to the 9 chord, right? That would be a B6. This is a B9. Here's my B chord using the A shape. Hopefully somebody's going, oh yeah, now I'm starting to see it. There's your B chord, there's your B6 and B9. I know that's not a full B6 or a full B9, but it's enough to color the sound like a B9. So when I went and did this, I played an E in essence. That would be part of my E chord. And then a B9. Even though it's a minor triad, it's representing the sound of a B9. Hopefully you're getting that. Now's the point in the jam track where the song goes from the E to the A to the B and back to the E. So from the 1 to the 4 to the 5, like we did before. So for the E, I went back to my E like I did before. E chord using the D shape, just strings 1 and 2. But I just hit those first 2 strings. And then when it goes to the 4 chord, which is my A, I went like this. So I dropped the major third down to the minor third. Now why would that work? If I take my E major with the major third and I drop that to a flat 3, so that would be like an E minor, right? But so why would that work over the A chord? So in the jam track, there's an A that's happening there. So if I put an A in the bass and play that, it has a whole different sound. It's in a different context. That becomes the flat 7 of your A. So now you've got the sound of an A7, an A dominant 7. So here's your takeaway on that. When you're playing a song that's got a major chord for the 1 chord, and then it goes to the 4 chord, you can just flat the 3 in your 1 chord and play that sound. That would be the dominant 7 of your 4 chord. And it's a real cool sound to hear the major third and then just moving 1 note here in the flat 3. It sounds cool. So when you hear that in the jam track, you'll definitely hear what I'm talking about. And the lick that happens after that goes. This is a cool lick. And what we're looking at here is E major pentatonic scale pattern 4. Look at this. And this is my E chord using the C shape. So just to connect those, that's where I'm at. And I love what you can do on the first string in pattern 4. You can just chromatically walk from this 4th fret up to the 7th fret on the first string. I hear this all the time, and also hear sliding into the 4 like this. From the flat 3 to the 3, you hear. That's just a lot of cool stuff that comes out of that. And the way that I played that goes 4, 5, 6, 7 on the first string, down, up with the right hand. And then we come back to where we started, 4th fret, first string, and watch this. Little stair step shape, 4th fret, first string, 5th fret, second string, 6th fret, 3rd string, and then you play those together. So it goes like this. Now why does that work? And so I would encourage you to pause the video and see if you can work out what's going on there. What is that? Well, first of all, I'll just tell you, that's a minor triad. So why does that work when we're playing over the E? And if you listen to it with an E in the bass, it doesn't sound minor at all. It's got a different sound. Hopefully you know what that sound is. I talk about this one a lot. That's my E6. And if I move it down 2 frets, it's my E9. Inside of a 6 chord, which is major, is a minor triad. And I'll put a lesson up on the screen, which was last week's lesson, where I talk more about that and go into detail on that. ML144 was the lesson number. Okay, so the next part of the song, sort of the B part, we're going to go to a different chord structure. We're going to go A, G, E. Just repeat that. And I have a whole different set of licks that I'm playing over that little poppy thing where your fingers are kind of doing a dance. I'll explain what that is and how you use that open chord over that. And we'll also be looking at things like where you've got, you know, these little harmonies, but you've also got that open 1 string ringing out. All kinds of cool stuff you can do with these open strings. So that's going to be in the part 2 video. And also I have a video on how to play the rhythm and the tablature for all of it. So if you want to really practice this thing and be able to play along and jam with both the rhythm and the lead part, I've got jam tracks that are missing both parts so you can fill in those missing gaps. It's just a really good way to kind of learn and understand how to jam with somebody. And that's really the idea behind this. If you've had any breakthroughs as you're learning how to take advantage of those open strings, leave a comment and let me know. I always appreciate reading those. I do read through all the comments. And if you've had any questions about anything, if something isn't clear, feel free to leave a comment there and I'll try and get back to you. All right, we'll see you in the part 2 video where we'll go over the rest.